So welcome to this part of this series. I was basically doing the video series of the class we were supposed to cover last time. We were not able to complete, and today's class, or what was intended for today's class when we meet, is basically anything that will be in the manual between pages 1 to pages 14. I repeat, this is between page 1 to pages 14 of the training manual that we have. I'm hoping to be able to just introduce the concepts. Again, this will be discussed further in class. It's 2:30 a.m. I honestly need to prepare for that meeting before we get to 6 a.m. So that I can rest a bit. So I'll just talk about the issues briefly, since we'll be having that class, to try as much as possible to explain them in depth. The other thing that I feel is important to note is that I'll just basically do videos to summarize parts of the manual that I feel we need to cover. This will be anything between 6 to 10 videos that will summarize the whole manual, so that once we meet in class, I'll just be talking or expounding further. You can go back to the videos in case something wasn't clear and so forth. And this is, again, it's for future reference for future students. So this will be the first series of the video, and if there's any key takeaway from it, we can say that ethics is basically about distinguishing between what is right and what is wrong. But when we're talking about ethics, we need to separate certain terms over here. You have on one side ethics, and on the other side you have morals or morality. Now, both are, one is Greek word, the other one is a Latin word. Ethics is basically ethos, meaning character, and it's a Greek word, and it basically has to do with principles and standards, or a guide or rule book that is showing the way to the desired behavior. That is basically what ethics is about. But morality is more internal. It's basically an inner compass that the person has, and this acts as the basis for which they determine the goodness of certain decisions or the badness of those decisions. Now, on one end, ethics is basically societal based, where most of the norms that are established by society as acceptable rules of behavior are considered to be ethical or ethics. But on the other side, when it comes to morality, these are individual guidelines. It is what you determine is proper. Therefore, it is possible to have a certain moral stand that is not a societal stand. For example, when we are talking about abstinence, that is a moral stand. When you get to the society, that may not be the case. When you talk about substance abuse, and this one we're talking about alcohol, maybe smoking and so forth, this can be a moral principle that you have, but it is not necessarily a societal principle. Therefore, you need to understand that morality is all about you as a person and not the society. Now, our source of ethics is basically external, and the society that we live in. These are basically inculcated systems of thought that come from the immediate society, and that is where we said the environment plays a key role, because it defines what is ethical. It basically defines what is ethical and what is unethical for a given group of people. Now, this society, which is the source of all these things, is not homogeneous, as it were. It is heterogeneous, where you have a mix of color, you have a mix of sexes, male, female, you have a mix of races, you have a mix of tribes, you have a mix of different income demographics, you have a mix of all those things are acting as a basis, and the overall summary of it all, and the society says this is acceptable behavior. That is what is defined as ethical for the society. But the reason why we have ethical relativism and absolutism is because no one group of people will ever agree on a certain topic or a certain conversation. Therefore, you will have the far left, you have the far right, and you have the moderates over here. And there will always be a push and pull between this side and the center over here. Is it far right? Is it far left? Is it the moderates? And that is why we say society today is heavily polarized, because the tolerance that we had for serious divisive issues is no longer there. The far right stands for the far right with very minimal tolerance for the far left, and the moderates do not understand what the fuss is all about. Again, we go back to the issue that we talked about, society. On the other hand, your morality is internally sourced, as it were. This is basically who you are as a person and how you guide your life, and this can come from a value system that has come from either your upbringing, parenthood, or your experiences, but it is an overall summary of who you are, your morality. But this morality keeps changing over time, and that's why we say there are people who are morally sensitive to certain issues and not certain issues, because it is compounded by experiences, it is compounded by society, it is compounded by so many other things. Now, when you go to the issue of, sorry, just give me a minute. When you go to the issue of morality further, you will find that the reason why we conform to the ethics of a given society is because we are afraid of the repercussions that are likely to come if we break the norm. And this is even in weirdly where some things that are considered ethical by a certain society, for example, slavery was ethical at some point in time. Currently, gender roles are still very divisive. In Arab, where women are not allowed to drive, you have women are not allowed to vote and be educated and so forth, even in Afghanistan as we speak. Those are the ethical issues. In other words, that's the established ethics for that society at that particular moment. Therefore, the reason why we do not want to fight it is because we do not want the punishments that would come for us being not compliant to the established ethical system. For example, if you are a woman and you're in Afghanistan and you become an activist trying to fight for the rights of women to be more educated, to be employed, to be independent, to drive, and so forth, chances are that you will die are high, you end up in prison are high, and so forth. Therefore, most times that we follow a certain ethical system is because of self-protection and hedonism, as it were. But the reason why we follow a certain moral standing is because we believe it is right or wrong. I need you to get that difference. On this side is because we want to conform, there might be punishment. But on the other side, internally, our morality is guided by this is right and this is wrong. But what is right and what is wrong, as we have said throughout the class, is very diverse, and it changes from one person to the other. Now, ethics, on the other hand, are well founded sometimes on reason and rationale, and is a very objective way of looking at things. However, morality may be intuitive and subjective, and it varies from one person to the other, and there is less acceptability overall in the society. I'll repeat, when it comes to ethics by a society may be well founded on reason. That's the first reason. rational, and maybe objective based on the data that you're receiving. And there is that universal acceptance within a given society. For example, Kenya, what is ethical and unethical is a generally accepted concept. But when it comes to morality, it is something that is intuitive, experiential, and subjective, in that you cannot be able to quantify why you became the person you are, why you have chosen a certain morality as a rule book for you as a person. It is possible that you can have a Muslim, one is wearing a hijab, the other one is not wearing a hijab, yet it is the same faith. One has a different moral standing than the other. It is intuitive and subjective, and sometimes it is not always accepted from person to person. It will differ from one person to the other. Therefore, those are the key differences that need to be clear when you come to morality. Let's go to the next topic for the day. Thank you.